Hi, welcome to my channel. In this video I will talk about prevent GL period closure when open subledger period exists. As you know, in specify ledger option there is one option, as you see here as a checkbox, to prevent that the period in GL to be closed when the same period in subledger still not closed. As you know, for the period prospect or whatever, we have a periods in GL, we have a periods in payables, receivables, cash management. We don't have periods in fixed assets. Periods, once you during runs depreciations, you have the option to close. Once you close, the next period will be open automatically. So there is no open and close in fixed assets, only through depreciation or running depreciation process. So how to prevent? As you know, in EBS as a e-business suite, you can close the same period in GL even if the same period in subledger modules still open. Here, as you know, that it's enabled like a new features by Oracle Cloud to restrict this process. So to be ensure that the same period in subledgers and the GL is closed. Prevent accounting period if accounting period of any of the corresponding subledger is still open, or incomplete accounting entries or transaction exist for the period. So this is the conditions. If there are any incomplete accounting for these subledgers, transaction exists still, for example, not transferred or not posted in GL, the system checks all of these validations. Again, to ensure that effective close process by validating all transactions complete and incomplete transactions aren't held up during the close. In a summary, to check that and validate that all of the transactions is transferred, created, accounted successfully, posted to GL. After that, the system will allow you to close the period in subledger first, after that in GL. Assets is now included in the list of subledger. Before that, assets is not included. Now it is included, plus cost management, payables, project foundation, receivables, revenue management, subledgers, and also we can see it later. Including asset subledgers, period status of the assets book are also checked. General ledger period close is prevented if any of the asset book enabled for posting to primary ledger have not been closed. And also you have to control which book will be which book you will enable this feature to it, which book or asset book you will disable this feature on it. The feature provided business benefits, bring general ledger period close process in line with corporate-wide business policy. Period in GL closed, it means that the same period closed in subledger. Again, comply practice not allowing closed general ledger period to be reopened unless there are material changes. In general, companies that follow this practice unless there are strong justification and related approvals. By using this feature also, you may not need to reopen a closed accounting period because you already ensured all unprocessed transactions exceptions were duly resolved before the GL period close or was closed. As you know that in e-business, or even if here in Vision, if you not enabled this checkbox, still you can close the period in GL, but the same period is still open in subledgers. So the business users can still allow to enter transactions in subledgers, adjustment, whatever. Again, you have to reopen the same period in GL because these transactions which is entered recently by users need to be transferred to GL and again to post it. But In case of you enable these options, you will not allowed like this happen. Provide more meaningful and accurate financial reporting, because you will ensure 100% that the period is closed like in Subledger and GL. And also with audit requirement, for example, the audit needs to ensure that why this period is still open in GL or closed in GL but still open in Subledgers, or vice versa. Prevent GL ledger closure when open Subledger period exists. When you try to, if you enable this checkbox and try to close period, you will find like error like this, that the prevent general ledger when open Subledger exists is enabled. It means that you have to check these subledgers, why this period is still open there. You have to resolve all of the exceptions, you have to account all of the unaccounted transactions, you have to transfer post in GL. Everything is okay. You have to start to close the same period in Subledgers, whatever receivables, payables, project cost management, fixed assets, and ensure that it's closed. Again, come back to GL and try again to close. It will be closed with you. But if there are any unaccounted or exceptions in Subledger for the same periods, you cannot close it in GL until you resolve all of these exceptions in Subledger. And also that summary of the warning once you click off the output of this report, because there is one, as you know, in ESS job as a schedule process, there is one process to close GL period. When you run this report, any report in general, you can have a log file. This log file either complete successfully, issues, whatever. If it's completed with warning or with error, you have to download the log file. This is like a log file of the GL close period ESS job. So here as a summary, again, it's give you that why this ending with warning, because there is this checkbox is enabled and the same period again in Subledger is still open with exceptions, with unaccounted, or you still didn't create accounting and transfer and post it to GL. So you have to start from Subledgers again, follow to GL. For these features, as you know, that customer, you have to must take action before end users, or use it by business user, end users, whatever, like a checkbox as I show you before. Like implementation decision point, do you want to enforce striker guidelines to GL period close process? So you should enforce stricter operational business rules to mitigate for the additional time efforts that may be required within the period close cycle to resolve the exceptions, and also plan your period close process efficiently to make sure that the financial and legal reports can still deliver on due dates. Because as I told you before, why this period here is closed but here is still opened, or vice versa. Also, do you selectively exclude one or more subledgers? Because later during the setup you can exclude, for example, fixed assets but include payables, exclude receivables, include fixed assets, and so on. You may be forced to reopen general ledger period to later account for the unresolved subledger transactions. Prevention of period closure applied to the primary ledger. Period close process prevent corresponding general ledger accounting period from closing if any of the following exceptions exist. First of example, or the first level, period status. Subledger accounting period are not closed. Second level is transaction exception. What is the transaction? Unprocessed, untransferred, a pending intercompany transaction, a pending transaction in GL interface, like for example integration third party or subledgers still in interface in GL and still not imported successfully and posted. Unposted transaction in GL. You can also exclude one or more subledger listed, as I told you. There is one lookup, we will see it later. Through this lookup in manage GL general lookup, you can disable subledgers or enable whatever based on your requirement or based on your business requirement. Period status exception, subledger accounting period, the transaction exception, unprocessed, pending intercompany, transaction GL still pending, unposted transaction in GL. Including assets, again, the period status of the assets also checked. And general ledger period close is prevented if any of the asset book enabled. Again, the user should check all 8 points from above if there are any exceptions included in the mentioned point. Steps to enables, again, as I show you before, through the GL specify options of general ledgers, there is one checkbox you have to enable, and also there is one lookup which is or_GL_include strict PRD clause. This show you all of the existing subledgers which you can exclude and include. For example, this is the first setup, specify ledger. There is one checkbox, enable these options to set up structure period close for a primary ledger. This primary ledger. Second one, for the rule, you don't need any rule or privilege to access setup and use this feature. The second one, as I show you here, that this throw checkbox, and this is the lookup. Where is the lookup here? This is the lookup. In GL general ledger lookup, manage GL lookup, you just search by aura GL include strict subledger search. You will find all of the lookup code like modules, AB, AR, project, fixed assets, whatever. And as you see here, by default, general ledger accounting period consider exceptions if any within the context of all subledgers. You can exclude one or more, whatever. So the GL period close process skips any exceptions encountered on account of period status within the context of excluded subledgers. As I told you, if you exclude these, so it means that you are going to exclude AB subledgers from restrict to close the same period in GL, but you enabled it for AR, fixed assets, whatever. Tips and considerations. Currently, primary ledger use this feature. You can revert back to the pre-existing functionality by deselecting this checkbox as a prevent general ledger period closer when open subledger period exists option in the period close sections on specify ledger option of a primary ledger. By default, again, GL accounting period close process considers period status exceptions, if any, within the context of the included subledgers. Again, you can exclude or include more subledger. And also, asset subledger is excluded by default. Transaction exception previously listed will still be checked and period close prevented if the process encountered or encounters such exceptions. You need to set up subledger exclusion and re-inclusion only once to apply to every primary ledger for which the prevent GL ledger closer when open subledger period exist option is enabled. Again, asset subledger excluded by default. Close period actions initiated using application pages will display an error, as I showed you before, that this error will include that you already enabled the prevent general ledger period closure when try to close the period. Unlike other subledgers, assets can use a calendar that is different from general ledger accounting calendar. So if asset subledger is included as a part of period status exceptions check as a checkbox, then you must first also close those assets periods that contain overlapping dates compared to the corresponding general ledger period before closing general ledger period. As you know, in fixed assets, you can create a custom calendar to fixed assets, different than the calendar in GL. In this case, again, you have to starting to close the period from the fixed assets to GL. Again, assets subledger by default is excluded through ORA GL include strict period clause. As I told you also before, that you have the option to excluding certain asset book from being subjected to the period clause exceptions, because in assets, what is the control level at asset book? So the assets book during run depreciation or whatever, create accounting, resolve the exceptions or unaccounted, the system will ask you what is your book. So in this case, or in fixed assets again, you can strict or for example disable or enable this prevent close period general ledgers by fixed assets through fixed assets lookup or FA disable strict GL clause. For this you will find the books which is already you defined. You have again the checkbox either enabled or enabled, so you can exclude some of assets books, you can enable some of assets of books. What is the job rules? Like this is the normal for implementations: application implementation consultant, financial application administrator, general accounting manager. As I told you before, or if a disable strict GL clause, the through manage fixed assets lookup, search by it will give you all of the assets book you already defined. You can disable, enable based on your requirement. So there are two lookup. One lookup for the subledgers, either AB, AR, BM, blah blah blah, and the other lookup for asset book. This is the end of this video, so I hope now to got a good idea or a full picture of preventing close period. Again, once you enable this checkbox, you can again to uncheck it. Is it okay? But to be accurate or to ensure that your application is accurate and it is all of the subledgers with GL on the same line, you can enable this. But again, you may face a lot of issues during trying to close the GL period, because you have first to resolve all of the exceptions and unaccounted transactions at subledger level first. After that, once you close the period or the same periods in subledgers successfully, at that time the system will allow you to close the same period in GL level. Thanks for watching. Good luck.